They say that in order to be successful, you must learn through failure. Well, luckily, we have failed a lot. I think it's fair to say that in our 7 years of doing restaurant marketing, we've probably failed for over 100 venues, and now we fail a lot less. That's kind of how failing works, but even better, you can learn from somebody else's failures. So in this video, I'm going to break down 5 lessons to ensure you learn from our failures. So this is a stupidly simple lesson that we had to learn the hard way. When we were first getting into this, we brought on clients from the US and we ran ads for them, just like we ran ads for our clients in New Zealand and Australia. And we got quite a few ad accounts blocked straight away. And it was very stressful until we figured out what the reason was. And essentially in New Zealand and Australia, alcohol laws, it's R18 to buy alcohol. You have to be 18 years or older. Obviously in the US it's 21 and older. And marketing tools like Facebook and Instagram typically set your advertising at 18 or above. So we never ran into any issues in New Zealand and Australia, but we were targeting 18, 19, 20-year-olds in the US with advertising which had photos of alcohol, talked about alcohol in them, and that is a big no-no. So to save a whole lot of headache, if you're running ads in countries for hospo, even if you're not talking about alcohol, but there's drinks in the photo, the AI might catch it as being alcohol. So if you're in the US or other countries which have 21 plus age restrictions on alcohol, just target people 21 and older. And if you're in New Zealand or Australia or other places where it's 18 and above, go for it with 18 and above. Now, if you would like to do an alcohol promotion, like 2-for-1 drinks or happy hour, I wouldn't recommend advertising it on Facebook. What I'd recommend doing is building up an email list or an SMS database and then sending the promotion directly to that database through those channels. So the next thing would be how to set up your Meta business account correctly. This is something that we got wrong back in the day, and something that I see as being wrong all the time when we onboard clients or when I talk to people who do this as an agency. And essentially they set it up wrong, and so the permissions are a bit squirrely and they can get their account shut down and it gets very stressful. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of how this should be done. So if you work in-house for a restaurant and there's just one restaurant, you can have one business manager and one ad account. Do not run ads off your personal ad account. Run all your ads off this one ad account. Now, if you're setting it up for a restaurant group, e.g. you own a bunch of different concepts, you would have one business manager for the group and one ad account for each restaurant. If you're setting up marketing as an agency that works with venues, set up a business manager and then get your clients to make you a partner on their ad account, which they're using for each venue. Do not create ad accounts for them in your business manager. This will cause a whole lot of headaches. Now, if you are unsure on the technical side of how to set up your business manager, I would recommend having a watch of this Ben Heath video that I've got on screen now. That'll give you a step-by-step guide walking you through how to set it up in 2023. So we once had a client that we thought we were crushing it for so well that we asked for a testimonial because we had brought in something around 200 customers in their first month. However, they saw things slightly differently. So data can be wrong for many reasons. So, Meta, Google data can be wrong because of restrictions of tracking across third-party apps and websites. So data that we collect using our ManyChat system or Google Sheet system or however you want to build out your redemption systems are often wrong because you're relying on the customer entering in if they redeemed or how much they spent, this sort of thing. So the best way to go about this is to ask the restaurant, or if you're working in-house, to set it up on the POS system so that there's a button for whatever promotions you're running, if you're running promotions. And that way at the end of each month, you can compare and track the difference between how many people came in on the till, how many people you think came in, and then you can sort of see where you're at. So we've found that after doing this for a few restaurants, typically if you use that ManyChat system, which I'll chuck on screen now, whereby the customer has to enter in if they redeemed and how much they spent, that typically will give you about a bump of 10%. So it's going to show you 10% more people that redeemed than actually did. However, we have had in cases where it's gone really far the other way, because once the person enters at the till, they don't feel the need to keep going on their phone. So I would recommend setting it up on the till. That's going to be the most accurate way of doing that. And that really helps you to be clear between yourself and the venue, or just be clear in the venue if you're working in-house, how well your advertising is actually performing. So this has probably been our biggest learning to date. When we first started, we were hyper focused on ROI. We were dollar in, dollar out. We would calculate the cost of goods, the cost of delivery, the cost of any coupon we were running, the cost of marketing, and then obviously our service fee on top of that. And we had to, stay within bounds to make sure things worked. And well, for many venues, this worked for a couple of months. Often in the long term, you could actually do some brand damage, because if those are your bounds of success, then obviously you're going to just be running promotions that try and bring as much people in the shortest amount of time to spend as much money as possible. And that's just not really how hospitality businesses are set up. They're set up to grow off the back of word of mouth. So really, you want your advertising to be geared towards growing that word of mouth. That's really what the long-term goal should be. And so when you are going about setting up your promotions, set that as being the framework. How can I bring as many people through the door to have a great experience? Because bringing people through the door to have a great experience is really what's going to lead to the longer term growth, as opposed to bringing people through the door to make the most profit, e.g. lowest cost of delivery, highest margin offers, etc., etc. So when we made this change, it really changed how we're thinking about promotions. And also, the hard part here obviously is communicating to the client that you're going in this direction and not in this direction. But they also understand how restaurants grow as well. So it makes a lot more sense to go that way. And I just want to add a note here. If you've got, or you're working with restaurants that really need a high ROI advertising product that works in a short period of time, the reality is it's probably not an advertising issue. If they need money, you're not going to be solving it through advertising. There's other things wrong with the business that's gotten them to that point. So personally, we tend to steer clear of those businesses, and I would probably advise you do as well. It's often something outside of running some ads on Facebook, which is going to solve those problems. So this last point is mostly for those of you that are an agency, or maybe you do freelance work, or maybe you're just helping a friend with marketing. So the gap between expectations and outcome is what we call goodwill. You need this to be positive to move forward in business. If you constantly underdeliver, you're slowly inching towards death. And if you constantly overdeliver, you'll start to inflect upwards and snowball in your growth. And yes, this is done by getting good results, but this is also done by setting realistic expectations. Set expectations and be really transparent about how things are going, and if you're meeting, exceeding, or not meeting those expectations. So don't promise a 10x ROI just because you saw it in a YouTube video, and don't even promise that you can get the same results that you got for your last client. Ultimately, this makes the job of delivery so much harder for yourself, and you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. But Hawani, if I don't promise a 10x ROI, no one's going to buy my services. I understand. Honestly, we've been there. So the way to still be able to make sales without jeopardizing the integrity of setting lower expectations is to set a guarantee. Say something like, hey, so we guarantee 200 new customers within the first month. However, we actually only hit this around 70% of the time, but that's okay. So for those 30% of you that don't hit this, and that might be you'll get a full refund. So what we're going to do is we're going to touch base after week 3 and then let you know how we're tracking. And if we're off target, then we can look at doing that refund for you. The reason why we do it this way is because there's so many variables that are outside of our control when it comes to restaurant marketing, and we actually don't know them before we run this campaign. So just being transparent, that's kind of how things operate. So if you do it that way, then you're realistic, you set low enough expectations, and if you don't hit them, you're not going to ruin your goodwill, you're just going to give a refund. And that's kind of the price of doing business before you actually know how good you are and what you can actually deliver on consistently. So hopefully you've learned something from these 5 lessons. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.